my entitled sister-in-law started a ridiculous showdown with hospital staff. Let me tell you about the wildest story yet with my sister-in-law, and trust me, this one takes the cake. We all know that person who swears by iPads as a babysitter and lets their kids run wild with zero discipline. Well, that's her. But this time, things got serious. Like, life or death serious. So, her daughter starts showing signs of pneumonia, coughing, fever, the whole scary thing. Naturally, they rush to the hospital, panicking like any parent would. Now, the ER is packed because it's flu season, and people are in there hooked up to ventilators. But my sister-in-law? Oh no. She bulldozes her way through, demanding immediate attention for her kid. I get it, if it's your child, you'll do whatever it takes. They get admitted and start running standard tests and asking all the questions. It's going good until the doctors ask about her daughter's vaccination history. Cue the awkward laugh. My sister-in-law actually thought they were joking. Spoiler alert, they weren't. Their faces turned serious as they realized this wasn't just a standard checkup. They were dealing with an unvaccinated child during one of the worst seasons for respiratory illnesses. The conversation grew tense. The doctors stepped out, and when they returned, they had a more senior physician with them. This time, the message was clear. If her child didn't get the recommended medication and vaccinations, they wouldn't be allowed to leave the hospital. My sister-in-law, stubborn as ever, called their bluff. She demanded that they treat her daughter without forcing any vaccinations or medications. To her, this was an infringement on her rights as a mother. But this was no longer just about her child, it was about public health. That's when things escalated. The hospital, seeing the situation for what it was, called the Police and Child Protective Services, CPS. At this point, reality started to sink in for my sister-in-law, but not in the way you might think. She began to break down. Not because she was rethinking her stance, but because she was worried about what she'd tell her kids. She was convinced this was all a conspiracy, that the hospital was against her family. Her faith in the power of the Lord to heal had always been stronger than her belief in modern medicine, and this moment turned into a battle between faith and science. With the police and CPS on their way, I can only imagine how long that wait must have felt. My sister-in-law, tearfully clutching her daughter, still refused to back down. She blamed the doctors, calling them incompetent for not treating her child on her terms. The hospital staff held their ground, and when the police finally arrived, it was clear that there was no easy resolution. The officers informed her that legally, they couldn't force her to stay or vaccinate her kids, but CPS made it clear that this decision had consequences. My sister-in-law was now facing the reality of potentially losing custody of her children. And yet, even then, she stood firm in her beliefs, refusing to comply. In the end, my niece received the necessary treatment, but the tension between my sister-in-law and the hospital staff never lifted. To this day, my sister-in-law believes she was the victim in the situation, that her parental rights were under attack. But from my perspective, and everyone else's, it was her stubbornness that nearly cost her daughter her health. I've got plenty more stories about my sister-in-law, but I think this one takes the cake for sheer madness. For now, I'll stop here, until she does something even crazier.